How many members of NORML?
NORML has 16,000 members in the United States. It has 120 chapters and has 350 lawyers spread around the United States working on marijuana law reform issues.
And what's your budget?
NORML's budget is $750,000 for the year 2004.
And where do you get your money?
About 85% of it comes from $25 and $35 donations, people who want a NORML t-shirt or a gold marijuana lapel pin. We do receive some institutional support from foundations and private family trusts, but it is mainly from marijuana consumers themselves. We are sort of like the consumers' union for marijuana smokers.
Fort Worth, Texas, go ahead.
Hello, this is Rabbi Phil Tarver, and for years I've fought for the right to use cannabis as a sacrament in our Bible, OAHSPE, O-A-H-S-P-E. On September 30th, 2004, my 18-year-old son was caught, appeared before court in Eastland County, Texas, with less than 1 gram of marijuana. He was charged, and he claimed a religious defense. Our rites and ceremonies of the Amithachava call for hemp in the first and the second degree. And he, at that time, or previously, he had asked for money from his mother's estate to hire a lawyer. He was denied that, and he was forced to take a court-appointed attorney. And then he was told at that time that if he didn't drop his religious defense, that he'd be charged with perjury and sent to prison for 2 years on perjury. And he later, we left court that day. He went home, and he died of a heart attack that night. And I'd love to have somebody look into this and see the illegalities of what they've done and how they took my young, he was a rabbi in Winter Oaks Faithist organization.
All right, thank you, caller. 2 questions: religious exemptions for marijuana use, and if that gentleman wanted to get a hold of you.
If you'd like to reach us, you can reach us 2 ways rather easily. One is by toll-free number 888-67-NORML, N-O-R-M-L, or you can reach us over the internet at www.norml.org. We receive 800 emails a day. We answer them all. Well, I'm sorry to hear of the difficulties that the criminal justice system caused your son, to say the least. Religious exemption in the United States for cannabis use does not exist. You cannot be a Rastafarian or a Zion Coptic, or in this gentleman's case, a non-Orthodox Jew who would use marijuana as a sacrament. It is with some irony in the United States that during alcohol prohibition, Christians and Jews could use alcohol as a sacrament, whereas in today, and considering how we revel in this country in religious freedom, that it is, I think, a terrible travesty of justice that individuals who would use marijuana as a sacrament in the same way that Christians and Catholics, such as myself, would use alcohol as a sacrament. So, again, there is no religious exemption for the use of marijuana in the United States.
How many people currently are prescribed for medical marijuana use?
Currently, in the United States, there are only 7 individuals who legally receive 300 pre-rolled marijuana cigarettes a month. That is grown at the University of Mississippi at Oxford, shipped to the RTI, the Research Triangle Institute in Durham, North Carolina, where upwards of 20,000 marijuana cigarettes are rolled at one time. It busts the machine, and then those are kept in an archive, and U.S. Marshals bring the marijuana to pharmacies that are approved for the 7 people that receive marijuana from the United States federal government. However, there are now 12 states that have, in some manner or another, passed laws that one could describe legalize medical access to marijuana. For example, in Oregon, there are 14,000 people currently registered with the state of Oregon to use marijuana. So if I was to add up in the aggregate all of these states, approximately 140,000 Americans are currently legally using marijuana at the state level.
But when you say legally, I mean, are those 14,000 people in Oregon at risk of being arrested?
They are not per se, and this is, we could almost spend the entire time talking about the difficulties of what we describe about medical marijuana. In the state of California, for example, the first state that legalized medical access in 1996, in that state, if you get caught with marijuana, you have a prima facie defense for your use of marijuana. And in the state of California now, after people prove that they have a doctor's recommendation, not a prescription, that's the fundamental difference here between prescription and recommendation. So with a recommendation, if you get caught, and if you are in a state, say, like Oregon, where they actually give you a card and the police pull you over on the side of the road and they think you've been using marijuana, you now have the ability to show the police that you are a registered state agent to use marijuana. If you don't have that card, you certainly can be arrested.
Time for 2 more calls with our guest. Newton, New Jersey. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to know, out of those 24 million people that smoke pot, how is it that you can say one of those might not be my surgeon or my son's teacher or my teacher's, you know, my son's in school stoned with a teacher who's stoned and they're trying to learn, or, you know, how is it possible? And first of all, I don't know any responsible adult that would use cocaine and heroin anyway, so I mean, it's possible, but beyond me. I just want to, you know, how is it possible that some of these people are not operating on us and teaching our children? And, you know, if you only do it once in a while, why is that?
Well, I appreciate the question. Of course, nobody wants to have their child's school bus driver or their surgeon or the jet pilot high on marijuana. Now, that's clear. However, we have standards in this country. We have impairment standards for alcohol, and one could argue we need the exact same thing for marijuana, which we actually do not have today. Such as that if I got pulled over today and my urine was to come up positive for past use 2-3 weeks ago, I would be held legally liable for driving while impaired. That makes no sense from a scientific point of view. So your point is well taken. If we want to have control over the safety-sensitive positions, prohibition does not deliver that to us. Through regulation, control, and impairment testing, we get the very level of safety that we're seeking. So everybody on both sides of this issue do not want to have impaired drivers, surgeons, parents driving children to school, etc. That's a given.
Last call for Alan St. Pierre, Lowell, Massachusetts.
Hello, Mr. St. Pierre. I would just like to say I'm a 64-year-old woman, and most of my friends who are in their 60s, 70s, and even up to their 80s, we all smoke marijuana, and we have since the 60s. When we don't want to smoke, we don't smoke, and we do. Some of these women smoke every day. Some of them are social workers, and there are teachers in there. They don't smoke in the daytime. They come home at night. Instead of having a martini, they'll have a joint. And nobody has ever crashed into anyone. No one has ever killed anyone. No one has ever started a fight over a joint in a bar. And we just feel like the liquor industry has a great deal to do with squashing marijuana, because we know their sales going down if marijuana is legalized. But it's just ridiculous that we have to live in fear, you know, and wonder if the mailman's going to smell it or the cable man's going to smell it. And we have to worry about this. And we're old ladies, you know. We're not going to hurt anybody. And we just think this stuff should be legalized, and if not legalized, at least decriminalized, because the prisons are filling up with young people. It's absolutely insane. And good luck to you, sir, and I hope everything goes well and we can beat this. Thank you.
Well, again, what can I say other than I appreciate your call, your sentiments, and I think that to a large degree you represent many Americans that believe that if marijuana should not be legalized and morally and legally controlled like alcohol, at the very least it ought to be decriminalized. And what I mean by that specifically is 100 million Americans, 12 states have decriminalized marijuana. If you get caught with a small amount, typically 1 ounce or under, that's approximately 35 marijuana cigarettes, you simply get a small fine. You're not introduced in the criminal justice system. You get to keep your student loan. You're not thrown out of Section 8 housing. You have a future in the military. You can get a security clearance with a private defense contractor. So even if we don't legalize marijuana, at the minimum, we should decriminalize it for responsible adult use.
Alan St. Pierre is our guest. NORML.org is the website. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Dan Glickman, Motion Picture Association of America is next.